Imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism. Lenin wrote Imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism, early in 1916, while on exile in Switzerland. Although the manuscript was at the printer by October 1916, the book itself did not appear in St. Petersburg until September 1917, apparently as a result of the general confusion and disorganization in Russia during this period. The book was written for open, legal publication in Russia. Lenin had Tsarist censorship in mind and devised means to circumvent it. Employing what he characterized as Aesopian language, he used non-Russian examples to illustrate points about Russia. As Lenin commented later, "It is painful in these days of liberty to read these squeezed-in passages of the pamphlet, crushed, as they seem, in an iron vice, distorted on account of the censor." He went on to explain, "The careful reader will easily substitute Russia for Japan, and Finland, Poland, Kurland, and the Ukraine, Khiva, Bokhara, Estonia, and other regions peopled by non-Great Russians for Korea." To Lenin, imperialism is the dominance of finance capital. Specifically, he does not define imperialism as it is generally defined, namely, the building of empires by subjugation of territories and the exploitation of these colonial territories for new materials and as markets. Indeed, as early as the World War I period, Lenin believed this form of imperialism was outmoded. Instead, he concerned himself with what he asserted was the inevitable next stage of imperialism, where the have nations could and would dominate the have-not nations simply by the export of capital itself. By this means, the rich nations would not need to exploit the poor nations to secure raw materials for their own industries, nor would they need to utilize the poor nations as captive markets. They could merely collect the continuing income from their capital while all the actual work was performed in the have-not debtor nations. It's obvious what this would cause in the wealthy nations themselves. The financiers would divert their capital to the foreign locales, where it would produce the highest returns, and refrain from aiding industry in their own countries, resulting in industrial stagnation in the wealthy nations. This, in turn, would intensify the division between the productive working classes and the non-productive investing classes within the wealthy nations. This, Lenin predicts, is the final, stagnant, parasitic, revolutionary stage of capitalism. To emphasize his case, Lenin deliberately does not draw upon Marx or Marxist economists for substantiation, but instead chooses to utilize non-Marxist sources for statistics and quotations. Of particular interest to the contemporary American reader is Lenin's
Sample complete. Ready to continue?